Hello and welcome to the SME Focus show powered by MTDCNC. I'm Mark Weymouth from the Sensor Specialist Plus Automation. I'm your host this week to highlight aspects of UK manufacturing and in particular SMEs. My guest today is Dolores Sanders, co-CEO of Total Control Pro. They're a business providing a cloud-based manufacturing execution software service called Dynamics MFG, and they help transform a business's production process. Hi Dolores, welcome to SME Focus.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. It's good to have you on, and I think it's an interesting topic to talk about. Can I kick off by, first of my strange questions, but can I kick off by asking how you travelled from having a degree in psychology via a 4-year diversion in marketing to a career in business and innovation? Much of that I know is directed towards manufacturing, and you could say you came from a bit of a manufacturing family and history. So can you tell us more about this and your love for manufacturing?
Certainly. It's a bit like the talking heads, isn't it? How on earth did I get here? As you say, I grew up in manufacturing. All of my summer jobs, everything that I did was involved in the factory in some way, whether it was bailing off the machine, helping to register sort of precision printing machines, or even doing petty cash and managing payroll. And at one point, organising the staff Christmas party, which I think was like 200 people at that time. So we grew to quite a large SME-based manufacturing and printing company. So we had, I grew up with strange stories, like being called into the factory one day because, strangely enough, a mouse had chewed through the 3-phase electricity inside the cabinet. And when we opened the cabinet, there was little mouse and a little mouse family, all very fried. But the impact was the whole place was down. We couldn't get anything up and running. My parents were away for a few days. And, the production manager called me in to go, okay, we're going to deal with this. So I understand at the core what a small family-run manufacturing business can be like, and how, you might be one day doing, some important customer information. The next day you are literally down at the machine. But psychology was always my passion, and I absolutely love how people think, behave, make decisions. And in fact, one of my study areas that I really loved was connectionism, which is all about distributed processes, learning through experience, and then biological inspiration, which is people, what people do, how people interact. And connectionism is the foundation of AI. So it seems like a jump, but actually going from psychology into digital marketing, learning how to translate early stage web development, how to take buyers from John Lewis online to buy online where they're previously buying in store. Yes, it did happen once upon a time, guys, those aren't as old as me. That behavioral change to then go into business processes, how you could get, on there's a thing called Hebdian learning in connectionism that says cells that fire together wire together. That basically mean if you get things to pull together, you get more power between them. And that's our brain working that way. But I think that's very much the sense of I never believed things should operate in silos. I always thought the way you can improve things is by getting communication between things working more effectively. And that bringing that into manufacturing has been a real focus.
Okay, fascinating. You mentioned there about the internet, and I don't think anybody's ever managed to go from dead mice to AI as smoothly as you did then, Dolores. So this will stay with me for a very long time. But talking the internet, you've owned a business consultancy called Business Interactive for 2.5 decades, 25 years. And I know that, or I believe that business is about helping web interaction and a business's interaction with its customers. And you've obviously worked with well-known names. Can you tell us a little bit about that business, and maybe particularly about engagement with SMEs, any sort of advice, comments, throwaway thoughts you have on how SMEs can really engage through the internet in whatever format that is, whether that's emails, websites, blah, blah, blah.
Absolutely. I think when we founded that, it was very much to bring this concept of digital transformation, but at a business operational level, and taking front end communication with your customers all the way through to the back end processes, whatever that was. Obviously, in manufacturing, that's taking an order through to getting that item made and out the door, but for a retailer, that could be, enabling them to get faster and faster decision making from what people are wanting, more customized based orders, that side of things. But it's always it's that same area of helping make small changes that allows, especially in an SME environment, the expertise of that SME to be the primary focus of the day-to-day activities, not the other stuff. So how can we get the other stuff as systemized and as organized and as streamlined as possible, so that you can focus on your actual expertise? Because no one, like, you get an accountant who starts an accountancy firm, they don't start an accountancy firm because they want to know how to market. They want to do what they do well, and if you can help them do that well whilst everything else is sorted, you can really stay in the passion of the things that you enjoy doing, I think, especially for SMEs.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect example of the SME exists to do what they want to do, but is distracted by doing all the other things. So if you can take some of that workload off them, and particularly if you can do it better than they did,
yes,
or more accurate than they did, then that's a win-win. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm conscious to keep talking timescales, but we'll have one last timescale I mentioned 10 years ago nearly.
You're making me feel really old.
But you're coming up to quite a big landmark, so I'm hoping you'll send out some cake or something. Total Control Pro is nearly 10 years old, so that's the business I've mentioned at the beginning. That's where I know you, and I think most people will know you from. And it's a provider of a cloud-based, modular, I think it's a key element, manufacturing execution system, so Dynamics MFG, and you really go out and target SME manufacturers. So can you tell us more about where the inspiration for the product was, I guess, originally? Let's go back, and then what it does, how you differentiate itself, and I guess also the broader service that Total Control Pro offers, as well as just this boring functional software-y thing. It's obviously far more than just a bit of software.
Yeah, no, it's I think it came from the consulting. Dorian and I were actually working on sort of manufacturing projects, and we're seeing the same patterns. Manufacturing just drowning in paperwork, spreadsheets, unable to get the insights they need when they needed them, or in time to make a difference, and also a disconnect between the shop floor and what was happening and the top floor or management layer who were wanting to make changes or actually believed what was going on the shop floor was what was going on. So the idea of Total Control Pro and then the Dynamics manufacturing platform came out from that frustration. How can we bring real-time data from the shop floor to show and visualize what's actually happening, and grounded in that foundation of reality, bring the insights to make improvements, make people, bring the right information to the right people at the right time. And we started in a fairly simple way, just literally capturing shop floor data, digitizing that, getting it where it needed to be, so you had that full traceability. And then working in the SME environment, we knew there was lots of technology available. I mean, you hear of the big guys like SAP or Epicor or something like that, the big ERP systems, but they were outpriced, complicated, and very rigid in their structure and development.
Yeah.
And we knew that the manufacturing environment was getting so it was moving from that forecast-driven kind of environment to demand. People wanted more, faster, quicker, but they also wanted more personalization. And the SMEs needed to be able to respond to that in a more effective way. So we wanted to take all of the tech that was available to the larger manufacturers, streamline it, get rid of the things that weren't needed, put it onto the cloud so it was accessible and affordable for SMEs, and then get deeper into the how can we help you deploy this, put it into place, what can we learn from that, how can we improve with you. So the last 10 years has been, we say we're built by manufacturers for manufacturers, but it has been a lot of what do they need to do, how can we help more, how can we bring this more information more effectively. And the platform really has grown module by module to serve what we're being told by our customers on a day-to-day basis that they need to see. I think that's what makes us different,
Okay. Are you able to give some sort of rough ideas of the type of customers you work with? I guess I'm trying to illustrate how your solution is really SME focused rather than large scale manufacturing?
Yeah. So we've got a relatively small machine shop in Gloucester, strangely enough, called Gloucester Machines. So they came to us because they felt they were at capacity, but they knew they could do more, and their supplier, their customer, wanted to put more work through to them, but everyone looked busy. And this is typically, everyone's looking busy, everyone's working hard, everyone's doing what they need to do. But actually, it was some inefficiencies, some information that wasn't getting where it needed fast enough. So we put the system in place, and we literally started with 5 users, expanded out to 10, 20, so we were able to expand with them as they started to get momentum and they saw the impact. They could invest and expand a bit further. They actually brought their customer into the shop with us. We went through what we'd done. We showed them where the bottlenecks were, where they could put more work through, and their customer who actually put 40% more business to them. So, they saw it, they paid for the system like within the first 3 months. That was a no-brainer, but it was more about them. They knew there was something they could unlock, and being able to unlock that and do what they did well. They've also engaged the shop floor. The guys on the shop floor going, we're using our iPhones and stuff when other smartphones are available, when we're out and about. But then we come in here and everything's on a piece of paper and I'm supposed to write something down. I haven't used a pencil since I was primary school. So we're actually giving them tablets. They can enter that information. They can see when there's a problem. They can go remove something from a machine when it's complete. They know where the autonomy on the shop floor is better. So people make better decisions for themselves in their day-to-day job, which is really what it's about, helping them do their lives better and enjoy their work better.
Okay, interesting. So I was thinking then about the value and how it's easier for operators, or they feel more involved if maybe they're putting in data that they feel is going to be read, as opposed to just scribbled on a bit of paper that they feel nobody's ever going to collate all this paper. And that kind of got me thinking. So another strange question, but can I ask you then, if you're working with lots of different companies and different projects and different things, what does a typical day look like for you then? So as a joint CEO of Total Control Pro, how would you describe a typical day or a typical week?
Well, I think it's one of the things that, I say I'm unemployable, because I kind of love the fact that things are different every day. My role will oscillate between, doing this is not normal stuff. My role will oscillate between strategy, delivery. I might be in a product meeting looking at features based on user feedback. I might be pitching to a boardroom or speaking at an innovation forum, or hearing about the next piece of technology or AI that we can combine with our system. But it's also really important to sort of check in, work with the team. We've all obviously had that remote working thing. We've actually taken the decision to bring a lot of our staff very close back into day-to-day. So if we're in the office, our team are here. It's very important too, because we like to actually work by, check in with them, because we are people led.
Okay. Obviously, if you're a business that's involving putting in change and adapting a new system, then people are absolutely key part of change, and also the success of change and the speed of change. And you're just talking then about pulling a team physically together so that people interact with people. So you've got quite a people first sort of approach. Can you talk to us a little bit about where this people focus comes from and the dividends you think it brings?
Yeah, I mean, I heard something recently that people don't like to be changed. They don't like when change happens to them. They like when change happens with them, and that's the important element. Manufacturing systems are tightly coupled with daily routines. Quality, safety, the machinery being used. They are daily routines, and they become very learned inside of the shop floor. So changing those routines, like changing driving a car. You go from a petrol to an electric car and you're doing a long distance. You completely have to change the way. The driving doesn't really change, but you've got to think about when you're going to charge versus where you can fill up with fuel. We've got to think about how you drive. All of those things are challenges. So when you bring any new tech in, it's an enabler. the first thing you've got to do is say, this is what enabling this technology will mean to you. This is how it can be different for you. This is why it makes you able to do your job better. As we were saying there, input it into a tablet, get some response, get some feedback. This machine stops. It's always stopping. It's always this point that has a problem. If they can genuinely feed that back and something happens, then they buy into that. So try not to have too big a project, but really get the change makers with you. We've often found that embracing the person who's the least excited about putting the software in. So the naysayer, find the naysayer and embrace them and bring them in, and then you've got a winner, because it is the people that are the differentiator. And in manufacturing especially, we've got a huge amount of knowledge, tacit knowledge, and people who've been in doing the same job role for a very long time. That's a risk factor for the company, because we're losing that knowledge and that learning. We've got to pass it on. It's a risk factor for the person, because they need to be able to take a day off every now and then. So if we can help them see that some of these technologies can just help that process, that transition and sharing of their knowledge, then that's also helps to create a bit more of the magic when you start the digitalization process, which is quite dry when you think about it day to day. It's like, people talk about an ERP implementation and they're already wiping their brow. But actually, if you can really get under the bonnet and, see how that will impact people, then you can start seeing the magic happen.
Yeah, I think you've mentioned a couple of times, which is a very sort of SME friendly approach of doing it bit by bit or doing it in modules, because everybody fears these horror stories they've heard of these big business implementations where a large organization implements SAP and it takes 3 years and all people do is moan about it. And of course, every SME owner thinks, I just can't afford a full-time team of implementers and I can't afford my business to be shaken up for 3 years. And repeatedly, you've mentioned about doing things in bits and breaking it up, and words which actually I think would very much appeal to the target audience of SMEs, in that that's how an SME needs to go about a business, because we've got to be in business.
Totally, because again, it's down to their choices. They need to focus day to day on what they do well. This stuff is secondary and extra. Yes, it will make a big impact. Yes, it will do something different. But in the moment, making and getting a product out on time versus planning a bill of material so you can upload it into a new system, you make the product and get it out on time. So it's helping understand those priorities as well when you're actually bringing the system into play.
And what would you say are the biggest challenges for digital transformation for SMEs, or maybe what advice would you have pre-outset if businesses are thinking about doing it? What questions should they ask themselves now?
Well, I think it's more of the things we've just said, but I think it's you have to do it. The way that the market is going, it's not an if, it's when, and then it's how and how fast. So it is a case of, as we've said, start small. Don't think you are too small or it's too complex for you to do. It doesn't have to be a complete system overhaul. You can start just where the pain is, whether that's scheduling or traceability or some real-time reporting. Do one area, see the results, allow that to drive the next momentum. It might start in the back office, then or the shop floor, wherever that will make the biggest impact, and drive it from there. And also remember, every single SME manufacturer is part of a supply chain, and the drive for more data across the supply chain kind of goes back to where I started, cells that fire together, wire together. If you've actually got data that you can share at an SME level, you'll start to generate real commercial advantage. I know how my product's made. I can give you the full traceability of what materials are in it. I can give you the carbon passport of it. I can give you a digital element that is my component that you can then add to your component, Mr. OEM, and the report on what's necessary faster and quicker. I am now vital and more important to you than someone who can also do the same part but doesn't have that data and doesn't have that, or someone who's overseas and doesn't do it in the same way. So the commercial opportunity now is really rapidly ramping up, and I do think there's something in OEMs needing to be more responsible and provide better ways of SMEs to do this and get on board. But you have to do it, and you have to do it now.
Yeah, I think the other pressing thing about doing things now is obviously we are in a world with more volatility. A lot of people are seeing their sort of financial forecast for this year and going forward maybe down compared to last year. But what better time to A, get a bit leaner, and B, actually understand your processes? You know, how many people are scheduling or running their business based on how things always were, as opposed to maybe how things will be for next year?
Absolutely. And you, if you're lacking the skills, then invest in some technology that frees up one of the staff you already have, so you're not increasing headcount. Can, if you've got the right systems that talk to each other, that communicate with each other. So I'm not saying it's one system suits all. There'll be different parts, get best in class for you. And those should give you a really good return on investment very quickly. There's no reason now that shouldn't be the case.
Okay. I liked your analogy about EV cars earlier, and it made me chuckle a little bit, because quite often people ask me, how long does it take to charge an EV? And the honest answer most of the time is it doesn't, because you just plug it in at night and the fairy comes along and puts fuel in it for the morning. But people don't perceive that advantage if they just talk about, how long does it take to charge on the one time a year that you drive a silly distance? So There's a lot in explaining the benefits and the differences to people. So Cass, sort of,
or as my husband would say when we drove to France, it was enough time to break the back of a credit card while shopping. All the French chargers tend to be in good shopping centres, so it was quite nice driving through to the south of France on an electric car, tell you.
Well, I hadn't thought of that analogy. I tend to be a little cruder and say, well, the car has a longer range than my bladder because I'm a man of a certain age. So that's usually my criteria, which is a lot cheaper because I am only spending a penny. But yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think I was going to ask, what challenges and misconceptions do you think that SMEs have about smart tech and in adopting smart technology, and thoughts on AI? So it's a hell of a subject. We could talk about that for a couple of days and I could vent, but what's your feelings on the challenges and misconceptions about adopting tech and AI?
I think it's a bit like Industry 4. AI is, these sort of words get used interchangeably and float around, and people go and they become a bit kind of just desensitized to them. But actually, if we go back to what we said at the beginning, which is about getting a network of processes that streamline what's going on so that you can do what you do better, that's really what we're trying to do. There are just new tools that do that. So as long as you start with the pain, start with what's there, and then find the best tool, and it might not be an overly complex system, it might not be AI yet, but that's the direction of travel. And at the moment, I think done well, AI is an enhancer. It should be seen as a co-pilot that can sit alongside. I saw a piece of technology for manufacturing on Friday that is interrogating a manufacturing organization, a large multi-million-pound organization, and it is interrogating the system and going, which parts do I make most efficiently? Where do I need to increase my headcount today? And literally, you were asking it questions as you would Alexa about how the weather was, about running your factory. Now, I predicted, we're talking about this happening back in 2016, 2017, and people were like, how is that going to work, etc. Now it's just happening. It's happening faster and faster. Yeah. So if it's happening at that level and it's happening in our day-to-day lives, control and manage how it is inside of the manufacturing, but be transparent so that you understand the outputs. And also, it's, you'll have a CNC programmer who'll go, I know exactly how a 5-axis machine can, do this part. I have no idea how that works. I literally don't understand the engineering at all. I know you could put a roll of metal like this into a tool and you can stick it in and it comes out as something completely different. And I have no idea the engineering of that. but it doesn't stop us using it, and it doesn't stop us building planes that take us up in the air, which I still have no idea how they work either. We don't have to understand it all. We just have to know why it's the right tool for that role and how to use it.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. I'm going to ask a couple of questions maybe away from the Total Control Pro side of the world. So maybe a final question on that, or what one takeaway piece of advice, or what's the message you'd like a listener to take away from in terms of Total Control Pro, or in terms of digitization, or what's the takeaway? A lot of people watch this probably on a Saturday or a Sunday. So what's the one takeaway that you hope will stay with them long enough for them to have it in mind on Monday?
I think it is that smart manufacturing is within reach, and you don't have to be an expert or have a huge team or be a massive OEM to really get started or get massive advantage from it. So the right tools, the right mindset, working with people on change, any manufacturer, irrelevant of size, can take control, can reduce waste, can empower their people to do their job better. And for UK manufacturing, it's so important now. We are going backwards in terms of digital transformation, in terms of smart manufacturing, and we're going backwards in terms of productivity, and we need to shift that.
Yeah, it's not a particularly positive, but a very true view of the world. I mean, in my little view of the world in automation, I see where we are in the UK compared to Europe, and it's a constant frustration of the lack of adoption, but also the opportunity. I bang on the number of times.
That's the opportunity. That's why we're here.
Yeah, £100, and we can revolutionise how they count one thing and learn on that one thing, and then obviously you can pull that into much cleverer ways and dashboards and stuff. So okay.
Yeah, no, exactly.
You mentioned earlier in passing innovation networks. I know you're quite active in sort of innovation networks and networking stuff. So can I ask you really, I guess, what the value is you see in these collaborations? Maybe give some examples, and also going to ask the other side of the question: can you offer advice to people?
I think they can sometimes, people can see networks, people like networks, or people call them cliques. The point is, the more involved you are, the more you're going to get from a system. For me, innovation doesn't happen in silos, and being part of them, whether that's Made Smarter, that catapult systems, regional ecosystems like Connex, or this sort of thing that we've been part of, it keeps you connected to fresh ideas, fresh funding routes, and different collaboration opportunities, not all of which will make it through. I think you should always go in with a clarity of exactly what makes a good collaboration opportunity for you, because you can find people get yes to everything and then get involved and think, well, actually, is this actually helping my business? But also others who go in and I'm only going to go for sales or something like that, and then that doesn't happen either. And it's like, be really clear, it's collaboration, and the more you give, the more value you give, the more you get back. But really constrain that. It's like if I said to you, Mark, go out and plan an awesome weekend with no constraints, it'd be like, okay. But if I said plan an awesome weekend that involves fast cars and sunshine and some open bottles, then you might be booking tickets for a Grand Prix. You need some constraints, then you get something that really works. And I think that's what's important in the networks, is knowing what you do. But I do really recommend getting involved, because whether they're an informal peer group that can just help you understand or make sense of something that's going on from strategic, from business morale, or it's an actual more formal collaboration where you get invited to be part of solving the next smart car challenge or whatever that is. They really do keep you looking over the parapet. One of the biggest challenges in any SME, of which we are definitely one of them, is you get your head down, bum up and focus on what you're doing. But at some point, something has to lift you up above the parapet to see beyond what's going on, so that you're going in the right direction. And I think that's what these groups can do, and can do it for you when you are busy as well. They can, check in. Okay, I know you're busy, but have you seen this? We can direct you to that.
Okay, interesting. So a bit of a change of tack, something you volunteered to go along with. So a lot of people watch this at the weekend, and I guess also we're talking about collaboration groups, and maybe where you talk slightly more off script and about the things that actually really interest us outside of work. So can I ask you, if you were talking to somebody, maybe you stood in a kitchen and you were talking to somebody about something they really want to talk about, so I'm hoping that's not digital innovation. Can you tell me what you would be talking about?
Oh goodness, I mean, bizarrely enough, so my sister, who also grew up in manufacturing, also works as head of digital innovation for a BAE project. So strangely enough, we can go from talking digital transformation, cloud technology, secure systems, to children, food, parties, and all that stuff in one conversation. So no one can keep up. But my passion's really, family is absolutely a core for me. I am always surrounded by either my children who are grown up, my parents-in-law, they are really, really important to me. So, it will be children. We've got lots of nieces and nephews. I'm hoping to become a grandmother soon, hopefully, within the next year or so, which I'll be very excited about. So, and when we are there as a family, things that tend to get talked about are food, a lot of food, and music. We are, big music family. We've been to Glastonbury a lot of times. It's the one thing I think we can do with teenage children, and they really enjoyed as well, and we've continued that. So yeah, that music. And then the final thing we'll often talk about, which is a little bit controversial right now, is I'm a passionate Liverpool Football Club supporter, and although current form is terrible, who cares when you've already won the league?
I assumed LFC was Luton.
No, my grandfather was born in Anfield, and I spent a lot of my early childhood on Anfield Road. So yeah, it's deeply rooted, I'm afraid.
I think a few people know that, yeah. Dragging slightly back from the dreamy worlds of Liverpool to manufacturing, what things, and if you were to pick a couple of topics or just headlines of things UK manufacturing needs to do in the next 5 years to remain globally competitive, I won't dwell on the confusion with Trump as well in this, but what are the things that should be on somebody's consideration list going forward?
It's interesting, isn't it? There's so many things we can mention. Investment in people, infrastructure. I love the fact that you can go into a plant here still and they go, look at that machine, it's great. It's, we haven't replaced it in 50 years. Whereas you'd go into Germany and they'd be like, we're looking to replace that. It's at least 20 years old. It's such change of mindset. So it plants, people, infrastructure, modernizing the facilities, driving the data, embracing that data-led decision-making, really having that at the core foundation. But I think, and this will be, you'll know this is something we talk about a lot, but it is championing SMEs. The entire supply chain need to pull together to lift the whole of UK manufacturing. And if they leave SMEs behind as a sector, behind in policy conversations, behind in transformation and adoption conversations, if they leave them behind, then we have no chance. They're tethered too far below, we'll pull the ships back down. So, we have to pull together to bring everything up. And that's what they say, a rising tide raises all ships. But I don't think it will. I think it will just pull the anchors off some of the key supply chains if we don't pull everyone together.
Yeah.
Which again is a bit negative of a thought. I like the idea of everything bobbing up together. But yeah, I think, it really is about embracing the power of SME manufacturers. And I think actually the biggest opportunity for change is with them, rather than waiting for the policies or the OEMs or primes to make the changes. The biggest opportunity is those that make the changes in the SME environment.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about UK manufacturing and a lot of things needing to change and a need for rapid change. I mean, the one thing that SMEs are ideally suited to is achieving rapid change compared to a large monolithic manufacturing organisation. So, let's hope that the change is seen and acted on.
Absolutely.
Hopefully, a much more positive last question, and it's a traditional one for this show, is to ask, what do you have hope? What are your hopes, or what have you got planned for the next 12 months or so? What are you either planning to tick off, or maybe what you're secretly hoping to tick off in the next 12 months? And you've already mentioned grandchildren, so please don't put any more stress on the family over that.
I know. So, but I suppose from a business perspective, we are really about focusing on scaling and expanding our partnerships. We know we can't do enough on our own, and bringing more partners on board to provide the expertise, the best-in-class kind of elements to what the Dynamics manufacturing platform can open. So it's really about onboarding more manufacturers and more partners into really expanding that out. But that's all from a personal space. I really enjoy the time I have. I do volunteer work for Be the Business. I'm also mentoring a couple of female entrepreneurs who are building their business, which keeps me engaged in what else is going on. I'm also a Samaritan listener, so I really want to learn a little more in that and do a bit more and expand my skills in that area, because there are some innovations in the charity sector and how we can provide those services more effectively that are happening, and I'd like to get more involved in that. But really, I keep staying curious, asking, what's going on, what's exciting, what else I could do, getting out traveling and exploring what's possible. That's my next 12 months.
Okay. And what's Be the Business?
So Be the Business is a company that provides pro bono or work for small businesses who want to know what having a board would be like. So you have typically, it's a sort of 4 to 6 months productivity program. You get a mentor as a business owner, and then you get a pseudo board, so 4 advisors that you can bring challenges to. And we meet on Teams. They bring a challenge. We look at how we can answer them. So it helps people who are working without maybe the sort of business expertise around them to have that experience of what having a effective executive board might be like.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, they're brilliant. It was sent up by Sir Anthony Impney, and we were actually supported in about 6 years ago. We used the program ourselves, and I found it so effective that I said, okay, I could help out on this as well.
Okay, brilliant. So wrapping up, can I ask, how do people find out, first of all, about Total Control Pro, and how would they follow or contact yourself?
The audio simple one, totalcontrolpro.com. LinkedIn for me, Dolores Sanders. There aren't that many of us, so most people will find us. Find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty proactive on LinkedIn, so I won't ignore your message. And I'd be absolutely happy to touch base and answer any questions.
Tommy, do you guys make any...
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for being a guest. Thank you for explaining the business side of your life, and also the passions and the pressure that you're putting on your family. I will wrap up with the usual words by saying to people, if they'd like to get in touch with the show with a comment, a suggestion, or particularly if they'd like to appear in a future episode and set any expectations out for their family, then please email us at inquiries@mtdcnc.com, or contact myself at Stuart Whitehead or Joe Reynolds. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and from me, Mark Weymouth at the Sensor Specialist Plus Automation, cheers, have fun.